Hey, welcome back, podcast friends. Now, in today's episode, basically, you may not believe this, but I end up probably getting in conversations with somebody about their nutrition and their health almost every single day. And what I found is a lot of people think they're healthy and they're not. And because people they don't even know how to assess their own health. They don't understand how to assess whether what they're eating or not is healthy because we've been lied to forever from the food companies and drug companies. And so I totally understand why this is confusing. But I thought I could put together just real quick podcast that kind of let you know these are the things that you want to go through to self-assess where your health is. And right off the bat, if you are taking medications, you are unhealthy. Period. Period. And I've said this before, people don't realize there are two huge subsets of people. There are those people who are on no medications, never go to the doctor, never get hospitalized, and they're out living wonderful, vibrant lives. There's a whole nother subset of people that they think medicine is the answer to everything. If they have any little sniffle, any little illness, anything, they have to have a medication. So they spend their whole life on medications, doctors' bills, hospitalizations, and they don't realize what they're doing. So, like I've said before, if you are on medication and you think you're healthy, that's like taking out a loan from the bank and thinking you're rich. That's not how it works. So I want you to realize that, and I know that I'm saying a lot of stuff against what we've been taught over the last 50 years. But believe me, I am not the only one who is saying this. There are hundreds and thousands of people that are out there saying the same thing I am. We just have different audiences. So since you're my audience, I want to give you the best that I can give. So, one thing that we use as an acronym is NEWS, news. That's nutrition, exercise, water, and sleep. That's four of the main ones. And then we'll talk about a couple after that also that are also extremely important. But let's break each one of these down. Okay, so for nutrition, this is very, very important. This is like the key to everything. Okay. It's nutrition. It's not the exercise. Okay. And we'll talk about exercise. Love it. Great. Highly recommend it. But that's not how you're going to lose weight. If you are extremely obese, exercise is not what you need to be looking at. You need to be looking at what you put in your mouth. So there is a thing, and I've done an entire podcast on this. And just real quick, before I get started, I want to make sure that you guys realize I know I am trying to get all this information out to people just as much as I can to let them know that you have control over your health. You have 100% control over whether you're healthy or whether you're not, whether you're type 2 diabetic or whether you're not. You have 100% control over it. You can stop and reverse it, or you can keep making it get worse and worse, all by what you eat. Okay. So that's why I wrote the book, Your Plate is Your Fate. That's why we've got this podcast. And now we also have a newsletter that we put together because everybody said that they'd like to have something tangible that they can just read, they can print, they can highlight. So now we've come up with a newsletter. It'll come in your inbox every single Thursday morning. And basically what I do is I just take a topic that people have asked, take that question, deep dive into it, break it down and explain that question exactly. And then we have some other things like some popular quotes and some recipe ideas and some testimonials. And we ever even talk about some of these other physicians and dietitians and pharmacists that are in the same health space that are trying to reverse what we've been lied to about for the last 50 years. So anyway, so if you'd like to sign up, it's a free newsletter, comes every Thursday. I just want to get the word out to everybody. Feel free to just click on the link in the bottom in the show notes for the newsletter, and you'll be on the list. So, and just so you know, if you do this, it just so happens that you may have a gift offer in there for you as well, but you won't know till you click the link for the newsletter. But anyway, I just had to say that real quick because we're so excited. We just now got this out and ready to go. So, as far as nutrition, I've talked about this. I did a podcast called What is Metabolic Syndrome? And this is very, very important. Basically, when you hear metabolic or metabolism, that's talking basically about energy, all the energy, the energy we get from our food. It's the food that we eat, the nutrients that we eat, and what our body does with those nutrients. So we've talked about it takes protein. Protein is the structure. That's when you feel your organs, when you feel your muscles, when you feel your bones, that structure, that is all protein. Okay. So, and all protein is a basic building block of amino acids. So you have to eat protein to get a wide variety of these amino acids to build up all the proteins that your body needs. Okay. The other thing you need are fatty acids. You have to eat fat. Fat is healthy. We've been lied to. Fat is not what makes you fat. It's a lie. You have to have fat. This is how you increase your HDLs. We'll talk about this. Is you use fat for so many things in the body, and there's essential fatty acids that your body doesn't make. You have to eat it. So you have to eat protein and you have to eat fat. Okay, these are very, very important. If you do not do that and you spend most of your nutrition on carbohydrates, and a carbohydrate is any plant-based food, so anything with sugar, flour, any plant, vegetable, all man-made foods, everything in box, bottle, bag, and can. These are all carbohydrates. All carbohydrates have the basic building block of glucose. You're going to see as we go through this what is killing people today, all the diseases, all the medications, is because we eat too much glucose. That's what's happening. We've done it for decades. And so our insulin levels have been trying to take care of this increased glucose, because every time you put glucose in your body wants to get rid of it. And it does by secreting insulin. This does not make glucose disappear. It just turns the glucose into fat and it stores it in your fat cells. That's how your body gets rid of all this glucose. Okay. That's one of the main ones. So this whole thing, everything you're saying, everything I'm about ready to say has to do with stop eating so much glucose. Obviously, you can get rid of man-made food, but you can even decrease the amount of fruits and vegetables you eat too by a lot. And the types of vegetables you eat. Stick to the vegetables that grow above the ground. There's less there's still glucose, but there's less than like the potatoes and the things that grow underneath the ground, because that's the nutrients for the plant. That's the starch, and starch are just long, long chains of glucose. So we're talking about all glucose. So this back to metabolic syndrome, and this podcast isn't about metabolic syndrome. That's just the nutrition part. But what metabolic syndrome is, it used to be called syndrome X, and it actually has to do with your insulin levels. That's what causes all this. So what you want to do is you look at 5 different things. Metabolic syndrome, if you have any 3 of these 5 things, what this means is you have metabolic syndrome. And metabolic syndrome, if you have this, means that you are starting to tear up every single organ in your body. And every body is totally different as far as which organ is affected and how deeply they're affected. But it affects all organs. It affects type 2 diabetes is what this is leading to, which affects everything. You get fatty liver, you have fatty pancreas, you have hypertension, you have cardiovascular disease, you have infertility disease like erectile dysfunction and polycystic ovarian syndrome. You have mental diseases like dementia, Alzheimer's. There are just, every disease, kidney disease. Type 2 diabetes is the number one reason why people go on dialysis. So this is no little thing. If you have this condition, if you have type 2 diabetes or anything like this, you are hurting every single organ in your body. And it's totally because of what you eat. And you totally stop it by stop eating these things. So metabolic syndrome, if you have any of 3 of these 5 things, you have metabolic syndrome. If you have high blood pressure, which means 130/85 or greater, or if you're taking medications for high blood pressure, then you have to check that as, yes, you have that. If you have a high fasting blood glucose level, if it is higher than 100 milligrams per deciliter, or if you're taking medications for glucose, then you have to check, yes, you have that also. High triglycerides. The triglycerides, if your triglycerides are over 150 milligrams per deciliter, or you're taking medication to lower your triglycerides, check that as a yes, you have that. The other are low HDLs. HDLs, that's what we call your good cholesterol. It's your high density lipoproteins. For men want an HDL level higher than 40, and women need an HDL level higher than 50. If your HDL levels are lower than those, mark this as something you have. And then increased abdominal obesity. If you take and you measure your abdomen around the level of your belly button, okay, measure that, see how many inches that is. If that amount is greater than half of your height, check this as yes, you have abdominal obesity. Now, that was 5 things: high blood pressure, high fasting glucose, high triglycerides, low HDLs, and increased abdominal obesity. If you have any 3 of those, you are on your way to metabolic syndrome, which means you are already damaging organs in your body right now. And like I said, all of this has to do with eating carbohydrates. All of it. Because when you eat carbohydrates, your body doesn't know what you're putting in your mouth because it breaks it down in your intestines to the basic building blocks. So when you eat, all your body's noticing is there glucose? Is there free fatty acids? Are there amino acids? Are there vitamins? Are there minerals? That's what your body's looking for. And actually, your body doesn't want the glucose. That's why it's secreting this insulin to try to get rid of it. It does. Your body can make all the glucose it needs out of fat, and it can make all the glucose it needs out of protein. You never, ever, ever have to put a carbohydrate in your mouth ever, and you'll be perfectly fine. Actually, you'd be a lot more healthy than we are today. So that's the nutrition. The nutrition, if you want to do this, because when you put glucose in your mouth, that causes your insulin levels to be high. When your insulin levels are high for a long time, 20, 30, 40 years, you get insulin resistance. So that means now you've been eating all this glucose and your body keeps secreting more and more and more and more insulin to try to get that glucose down until eventually it just wears out. That's not really what happens, but base thing of it wears out. So now the insulin isn't working anymore. So now your glucose levels go high. When your insulin levels are high and your glucose levels are high, that's what causes high blood pressure. I did a whole podcast on I think there were 5 different ways, specifically how high carbohydrate intake, which leads to high glucose, how that increases blood pressure, which is a big thing. If you actually start trying to eat healthy, be very careful. Make sure you have your doctor's not understand, but make sure that he's got your back and he knows you're going to start eating healthy, because when you stop eating carbohydrates, your blood pressure will drop. It'll drop automatically when you stop doing this. So you have to be very careful. If you're taking blood pressure medicine and then you start dropping your blood pressure naturally the way you're supposed to do it, the blood pressure medication will make your blood pressure drop very low. You can get lightheaded, you could fall, all kinds of things. So you do not want to be doing this without your doctor's knowledge. Okay. So just let him know you're trying something different and that chances are you're going to be weaning down on your blood pressure medications because it's all due to glucose. So your high blood pressure is due to eating carbohydrates, high fasting blood sugar due to eating carbohydrates, high triglycerides. A triglyceride, that just means, and I'm going to do a whole podcast just on this, but triglyceride is just how your body turns glucose into fat, because you're eating all this glucose that you're not using. There's no way you're ever going to use the energy of the glucose that you're putting in your mouth. Your body knows this, but it doesn't want to waste energy because we're very efficient. So what it does is it turns all that glucose into fat. And the form of fat it turns it into is called a triglyceride. That's the form of fat that moves the fat all around your body. That's the moving form of fat, and then it's also the storage form of fat. So when you put triglycerides, will go to the fat cell, free fatty acids will go into the fat cell, and then it turns it back into triglycerides. So it's stuffed in your fat cells as triglycerides. And whenever you're eating carbohydrates, your insulin levels are high. So that's all you can do is store fat. You can never burn it when you leave your insulin levels high. So when you do that, that also leads to increased abdominal obesity, because now you're getting fatter and fatter, you're getting more and more obese, and now you have that increased abdominal obesity, and now your body has to find somewhere else to store the fat. So where's it stored? It stores it all around your organs, and that's why you start coming up with all this organ problem. So that's why you have high blood pressure, high fasting glucose, high triglycerides, and your increased abdominal obesity. The low HDLs, that comes from people are telling you that eating fat is bad, and that is a lie. Eating fat is the best way to increase your HDLs, your good cholesterol, because your good cholesterol is actually made in your intestines. And they've done all kinds of studies. When you eat cholesterol and then they measure your blood level of cholesterol later, there's no correlation at all. A high blood cholesterol level does not come from eating cholesterol. It comes from eating so much glucose, you're making so much triglycerides that you have so many of these fat mobiles, these VLDLs and LDLs that are floating around in your blood, that's the problem that you're having. Is you're having low HDLs because you're not eating fat, but you're having high blood HDLs or high blood cholesterol because you're eating so many carbohydrates getting turned into fat and your body's trying to store it. So all 5 pieces of metabolic syndrome come strictly from eating carbohydrates. Basically, that's the easiest way to think about it. So that's the in and news. Exercise is the other thing. And I've told you many times, if you're trying to lose fat and you are obese and you've never exercised before, this is not the time to think about exercising. Don't even think about it. All you have to think about is, what are you eating? That's what you care about. Because if you're eating anything that's plant-based, and I'm not strict carnivore. I mean, we have fruits, we have vegetables, we just don't have them very much. We use it more like a condiment, because we know that meat and the fat of meat and the vitamins and the minerals of the meat, that's all the nutrients we have. So anything else we have besides that is just extra. Okay. So I'm not saying to stay away from all plants. I am saying stay away from all man-made food, decrease significantly the amount of fruit you eat. And as far as plants, depending on how obese you are, how many medications you're on, that's going to determine how many plants you're going to eat. Because if you're extremely obese and you're on medications, I would say you don't eat any plants, no fruits, no vegetables, and stick with meat at least for a month or so and just see how you do. But I guarantee you are going to feel wonderful even after a month of this. If you're not that obese, you can still stick with the glucose, the plants that grow on top of the ground. Just stay away from the bottom ones. And we just talked about that. So, but that's how you're going to get rid of obesity. It's not going to be by exercising. When you exercise, and I've done podcasts on this before, when you exercise, what happens is you're burning all the glucose out of your bloodstream, all the fat out of your bloodstream, and you start to get some of the glucose out of your glucose stores. You will never, ever have enough energy that you need to get the fat out of your fat cells. It's going to take a while for that to happen. The only way to do that is to teach your body to always burn fat for your energy, not burn glucose for its energy. That's only for fight or flight energy. And the way you teach your body to burn your fat for energy is you keep your insulin levels low, because when your insulin levels are low, you eat your own fat. When your insulin levels are high, you store fat. Black and white. There's no other way. Okay. The only way you're getting fat is because you're keeping your insulin levels high. So if you're going to burn it out, you got to get the insulin levels low. To get the insulin levels low, you got to quit eating glucose. Quit eating glucose, that means quit eating carbohydrates, because they're all made out of glucose. So exercise is extremely important though. But there's certain ones, especially as you get older, there are very specific things that you need to really worry about. You're not trying to go out here and be a muscle builder. Okay. What you want to do is you need to increase your grip strength. Think about what happens when somebody's elderly and they're walking, and say they trip over their shoe or they trip over something. First thing they do, they're going to try to grab for something. They're going to reach for something. Okay. So if you go to reach for something and you're falling and you don't have grip strength, you're going to go ahead and fall. Okay. And in general, that's one of the biggest reasons why elderly people get put in the hospital, is because of falls. And many times, once they're in the hospital, they do not leave because of all the other things that happen while they're in the hospital. Okay. They weren't healthy in the first place and all kinds of things. So anyway, that's usually the last thing that happens to an elderly person when they go in there. So how to prevent things like this is to have good lower body strength. Okay. So if you start to trip, you can catch yourself real quick. Have good grip strength. So if you start to trip, you can grab something really well. Flexibility is another thing that people tend to lose as they get older. So you want to keep flexible. Do things every single day. Just stretching, simple, 5 minutes a day stretching will do wonders for you as far as your flexibility, and you be able to have good quality life and be able to take care of some of these issues that come up that you need to take care of. Balance is another thing, and we've talked about this in podcast. So there's different things that we do. As far as grip strength, what my wife and I do, we have a bar that goes across between our kitchen and our office, and it's a pull-up bar, but you can just hang from it. And so we'll just go in, we'll hang, and we'll see how long we can hang. My wife, she can usually hang on the average about 40, 45 seconds. I can hang about 2 minutes. What you need to be able to do is hang. You really want to hang for at least 30 seconds if you can, and then just try to increase that every single day and increase that grip strength. Flexibility, come up with a nice little stretching routine. They're all over on the internet. Just find a good little stretching routine, 5 minutes long, and just do that every single day. You'll be amazed at how much difference that's going to make in the long run. Balance, what I do for balance, and I've said this before, when I brush my teeth and I stand on one foot, and then I'll brush for about 30 seconds, and then I'll stand on the other foot, brush for about 30 seconds, stand back on the other foot, and I keep doing it until I've brushed my teeth. So I get my balance that way. Whenever we put on our socks or shoes or underwear or pants, we always try to do it standing right in the middle of the floor, and you just put it on. You stand on one foot and put your stuff on. When you do these little bitty things every single day, it is amazing how much it adds up. My balance is so much better now that I've started doing this, and I haven't been doing it that long. And then lower body strength, just lift things heavy, lift heavy things. Go up and down stairs. Lifting, you can do this with your body weight, but you really need to be lifting things. Just make sure you don't hurt your back. That's what most people do. I don't mean bend over and get something. You have to have proper form. But anything that you can do where you're lifting, that's going to increase your lower body strength. That's why walking is so important. You're moving the toxins out of your body, and you're getting your balance, you're getting your lower body strength. There's so much good things that go with walking, especially if you walk in the morning when you have the sun coming up, you're getting the sun in your eyes, you're resetting your circadian rhythm, you're getting the vitamin D on your skin, you're getting out into nature, you're breathing. If you walk barefooted, you're going to be grounding. I mean, there's so many things that can be done with a real quick little half-hour walk in the morning would do wonders for your health. Okay, so that's exercise. So news, exercise. The next one is water. We've talked about water. A lot of people know that water is important. However, they drink way too much. I see little girls that may be 5'4", carrying around a gallon jug, say they're supposed to be drinking that. They're supposed to have that all drink by the end of the day. That is wrong. That is not right. And that is actually lethal. That's not very good. If you drink too much water, granted you can pee it out, but you can dilute out your electrolytes, your sodium, potassium, and this can cause other damage. So you definitely can overdo it on the water. Most of us underdo it on the water because we don't drink water. We drink diuretics. We drink things that make us pee more. In the morning, we drink sugar sweetened beverages, and we caffeinated beverages. Both of those. Okay, so all your fruit juices, all your smoothies, all your, coffee, tea, if you put sugar in that kind of stuff. I mean, all these are just loaded with sugar again, which means glucose as far as your blood glucose. So you're drinking sugar and caffeine in the morning, then you're drinking sugar all through the day and probably caffeine. And then at night, you may switch and have a sugar drink or alcohol. And all three of those, caffeine, sugar, and alcohol, all make you pee more. Okay. So if you're drinking that, you're peeing more than you're drinking in. So most people walk around in a dehydrated state. That's why a lot of people, if they just stop drinking soda pop and they change it and they start drinking water, even if they drink a carbonated water, it is amazing how much their blood pressure changes, their weight starts dropping, everything very, very quickly because you start feeling better, and now you're not putting all that glucose in your body and you're hydrating. So how much should you hydrate? First, how do you know if you're dehydrated? One good, easy way is whenever you go to the bathroom, if your pee is yellow, in the morning, it'll have a slight yellow tinge, but all through the rest of the day, it should be colorless. If you're pee in the middle of the day, or especially if it's at the end of the day, and if it's dark yellow, that means you aren't drinking anywhere near enough water, and it could burn, and it could actually cause, urinary tract infections too. So how much water do you drink? Take your weight in pounds, divide that by 2, And your ideal body weight, not your actual body weight. So if you weigh 350 pounds and you know you're supposed to weigh 180, use the 180. Okay. So take that weight, 180 pounds, divided by 2, that's 90. That means that a 180-pound person should drink 90 ounces of water every single day. A good way to do this is find a bottle that's around 30 ounces and just know you have to have 3 of those bottles a day. And that's a very easy way for you to keep track of your fluid intake without overdoing it. So that's for water. So that's news. So it's nutrition, exercise, water, and then sleep. Sleep is just so important. I've done a whole podcast on water and a whole podcast on sleep. But basically, when you sleep, this is when your body clears all the not some of them are toxins, but most of it just metabolic waste. You have all these chemical processes going on all over our body all the time. So when you have this going on, it produces metabolic waste. There's waste products. The way to get that out is when you sleep at night, your body starts having this flow of lymphatic fluid. So we've talked about the lymphatic fluid in the body, and the lymphatic fluid does the same thing. It gets all the extracellular water, it gets all the metabolic waste and all that. It sends it through that and drops it into our bloodstream so we can pee that out. Okay. If you do not move, you do not move your lymphatic system. So you continue to keep those toxins in your body. If you do not sleep, then you don't move your lymphatic system in your brain. And so the toxins stay in your brain. So you've got to sleep to get the toxins out of your body, out of your brain. This is when your body does a lot of the healing, a lot of the growth. There's so many very, very important health issues that your body takes care of while you sleep. You're not just resting your eyes. There's a reason why our bodies make us sleep. It's very important. So you need to be getting, and I don't care who people are, they say, oh, I can live off 4 hours of sleep at night. I say, no, you cannot. You may be awake and you may be moving around, but you're not functioning anywhere near as good as you can because your body, there's no way that is a healthy body that's having to do that. And a lot of people who say this are beefing themselves up on energy drinks and caffeine and sugar all through the day. Your body needs the rest because it needs to heal. So that's going to be anywhere between 7 and 9 hours of sleep. Okay. You really need 7 to 9 hours of sleep every single day. And there's so many good things about that. You can listen to the podcast on sleep if you want to hear more about that. So that's nutrition, exercise, water, sleep. The last 2 are inflammation and constant stress. And both these kind of have to do with each other a little bit. Our bodies are so inflamed anymore. We never used to be that way. And we really found out with COVID, as people were getting admitted to our hospitals, that we were seeing all these people with extremely high inflammatory markers. Surprise, surprise. Where does all this inflammation come from? This comes from chemicals that are all over the place. We put chemicals on our skin with our sunscreens and cosmetics and all these things, moisturizers. It's in the air, it's in the water, it's in our food. We have chemicals everywhere. Some of these chemicals we have no control over. You can if you want to move somewhere else and just get different chemicals on you. But the one chemical that you have total control over is the chemicals that are in the food that you eat. If you eat man-made food, you are eating nothing but chemicals. That's all there is. It's ultra-processed grains, it's sugar and high fructose corn syrup, and it's these toxic inflammatory seed oils. And these seed oils are very toxic. All the safflower oil, sunflower oil, soybean oil, canola oil, Crisco, all the seed oils are very inflammatory. One, they're extremely inflammatory because they have way more of your omega-6 fatty acids than omega-3s. The omega-6s cause inflammation. Omega-3s are anti-inflammatory. So basically, when you're eating that, all you're basically eating is omega-6s. So you're actually eating inflammatory fats that are going to be turned into inflammation. The other thing is all the chemicals that they spray on these seed, on this man-made food to get the oil out of the seeds. You've got deodorizers because it stinks so bad in there. They have to wear respirators because it stinks on the assembly line of where they make these seed oils. They have bleaching agents in there. They have petrochemical solvents in there. They have high pressures in there. They have all these chemicals that they're putting in these seeds to make these seed oils because it's so cheap. It's so cheap. It makes no difference whether it's killing you or not. It is cheap and it is a money maker for the food companies. Stay away from it. Just stay away from it. So inflammation does come from seed oils. Fructose also gets turned into inflammatory mediators. So anytime you eat fructose, so that's glucose or high fructose corn syrup, you mix those with seed oils like they do in all the man-made food, and now you have inflammation going all over your body. Okay. This is what you want to stay away from. And the last one is constant stress. When you are stressed all the time, your body releases this stress hormone called cortisol. Cortisol does a lot of things in your body. When I say stress, basically what your body's doing is it's getting prepared for the fight or flight. Okay. So you've kicked in that system says, uh-oh, I'm in danger. So your pupils dilate, your breathing increases, your heart rate increases, the blood goes to your muscles. It totally shunts the blood away from your GI tract, shunts it to the muscles so you can fight or you can flight. Okay. So that is supposed to be for very short term. There's a lot of metabolic things going on in your body during that time. Your body has got to recover from that. So that's why glucose, we have very tiny glucose stores in our body, but that's what glucose is for this fight or flight. But you're supposed to take care of the situation and then go back down to your normalcy. Now you can kick back over to your parasympathetic system where it allows you to digest. Your pupils will constrict back down. Your breathing will settle down. Your heart rate will settle down. The blood will shunt from your muscles back to your gut. And now you can eat whatever it was that was trying to attack you. Okay. That's how your body's supposed to work. But when you're in constant stress, whether you're stressed about anything, food, money, job, relationship, it doesn't matter. Whatever you're stressed about, you are damaging your body. You are constantly producing this cortisol. Cortisol tells your pancreas that it needs to produce a hormone called glucagon, because glucagon is a hormone that goes to your liver and breaks your glucose stores, your glycogen stores, breaks it in glucose and puts that into your bloodstream. So when you're stressed all the time, you are constantly tearing down your glucose stores and putting that glucose in your body. However, the other thing is people tend to eat glucose all through the day, so they're really not even depleting their stores. You just have glucose floating around your body constantly. And when you're stressed, this is still the case. So it goes to the same thing: high glucose, high insulin, inflammation, high triglycerides, increased stuffing of fat in your fat cells, causing increased obesity. It's all wrapped around the same things. And all you have to do, you can sit here and worry about all this or not worry about any of it. All you have to do is treat vegetables like a condiment. Eat mainly animal-based foods. Have some fruits and vegetables every now and then, just for fun and for spice if you want it. You don't need it, but definitely don't make meals out of it. Don't eat this all the time, and totally avoid man-made food. And that one thing will take care of almost all these. Come up with some things where you can hang, test your flexibility, balance, lower body strength. This is going to help you, especially as you get older and older and older. These are going to be extremely important. Drink the amount of water you need. Your ideal body weight divided by 2, that's the number of ounces a day. Get 7 to 9 hours of sleep every single day. Prioritize your sleep. If there's something else you need to do, you don't cut it out of your sleep. You cut it out of something else like watching television or getting on social media. Cut it out of that, not out of sleep. Inflammation, stay away from man-made foods. That's basically it. If you can stay away from man-made foods and you eat mainly animal-based foods, you won't have to worry about the inflammation. And if you do this, you will be amazed at how much better you feel, and you feel like you have control over your body, you have control over your mind, and that gives you a higher self-esteem, and that alone can help with your stress. When you start feeling good about yourself, you know how to make goals, you know how to set your goals, and you know how to achieve your goals. Then you're going to do the same thing with stress. Figure out what it is that you're stressing about. Sit down with pen and paper and write down all the stresses you're worried about, and then go back and look at what are some solutions to these stresses and really focus on that. But anyway, that's basically what I had to tell you today. So news, NEWS, nutrition, exercise, water, sleep, and then also there's inflammation and constant stress, if you can get that out of there. So that's all I have for today. I hope this helps. And again, don't forget about the newsletter, because if you want more of this where you can just have something where you can read, just click on the link below, get our newsletter, and I'll drop in your mailbox every Thursday morning. And again, if you do this, you may find that you also have a special gift offer. So feel free. I hope you enjoy it. And that's all we have for now. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful week. And as always, make simple, healthy choices to live a quality life.